The member service plan is our next topic, and this document was emailed to site supervisors and not to members. The reason being, this is the members, essentially their position description. AmeriCorps requires every member to have a position description saved in their file for auditing, and we have drafted this to include all of the required AmeriCorps tasks that we know of, and then have left the last half of it open for you as the supervisor to identify the activities that the member will be engaged in at your site. So you will have to take the lead on drafting this because you made the request for the member. You know what your needs are. You have an idea of how you will be using that member. The member may have some input as to if you have an option, would you prefer to do this or this? Or, of course, we've talked about speaking to your members' strengths. So this document is not set in stone once it's drafted. If projects that you were very excited about accomplishing during the term end up in the scrap pile, something else came up, you are encouraged to update this. So what we're looking at is just the cover sheet, and this member service plan has been updated. The content is pretty much identical to what we've been using the last 2 years for Community Corps. It's just we have tried to make it more user-friendly for everyone. It is a Word document, and there are 5 really key pieces that we want to hit in that opening instruction. So I'm just going to read that paragraph right now. A separate member service plan must be submitted for each member. So even if you have 2 members doing very similar things, they need their own member service plan. Complete the member service plan by September 30th and email to mchsamericor@marshvilleclinic.org. Electronic or typed signatures are permitted in this document. Review the plan at least quarterly, and if significant changes have been made, then you need to submit an updated copy to AmeriCorps staff. It should reflect your members' actual work or service, sorry. Keeping the document as a Word document while serving will make it easier for you to make these updates each quarter if necessary, and it is not necessary after the initial signature to update the signatures each time you have an update. Questions on the instructions? There's a lot in 4 lines there. If for some reason you need an extension, reach out to us. Program staff are happy to be flexible when we can, and this is a deadline that we do have a little flexibility on. So you're going to just jot your organization's name, read the agreement and attestation. Basically, you're saying, I commit that we will make a wholehearted attempt to complete what's in this member service plan, both the AmeriCorps pieces and your own pieces. Then you both sign and date it. And that last one, final date of submission, the final member service plan gets submitted again in August. So you do it for the end of September, review it quarterly, and that last quarterly review, you'll have an extra step to do and then submit it one last time. Okay, I'm going to just keep going unless I see a question or a hand raised. The next page of the member service plan identifies AmeriCorps requirements. So there is a name for the activity, who the target population, who this involves and benefits, and then the timeline due date. So I would use this page and the following 2, I believe, to get all of these due dates in your calendar. A great activity for your member to do, to update their calendar and then invite you as an event, and then you just have to accept them. Make sense? Then you're in the know about the deadlines that we know. The team is identified, and then the outcomes and products. So if the member is successful in that event, what do you expect to be the outcomes, or what are the end products? And so those you're going to plan for success and identify. If you're successful, this is what should happen. So orientation, that's this week. Fall meetup, October 13th. Monthly team meetings, we've covered those the first Thursday from 9 to 10:15. Host site supervisors are optional, members are required. CDC foundational public health trainings. I probably had an opportunity and missed it to explain that. We didn't touch that with the supervisors, did we? Okay. So the partnership, Public Health AmeriCorps is a partnership with CDC, and part of our ultimate goal is to encourage additional workforce in the healthcare field. And so we are providing foundational public health training through the CDC website. It is a requirement of all members who are part of a public health program. So it is 8 different modules. The members have been exposed to the sign up. Some have even started. I think one has even completed the CDC training already, but it does take a significant investment of time, somewhere between 16 and 25 hours typically. So they have until the beginning of August to complete that. And so they can self-pace and work on that periodically. Some just want to power through and get it done. The returning community corps members will not have to redo those. We have their certificates of completion and we'll carry those forward. Midterm training, that will be the last weekend in, or not weekend, the last week of February, first week of the beginning. It goes February to March, and I think that's leap year actually this year. And we've briefly mentioned that that will likely be in the Dells, and it is like a 2-night event, 3-day event. Those would be dates you'd want to make sure you get on the calendar and reserve. The next page, the next activity is actually submitting and updating this plan. And you'll see the quarterly dates, the initial date, and then resubmit quarterly. If you just glance down, there are dates there in other activities. December 31st is the end of first quarter. March 31st is the end of quarter 2. June 30th, end of quarter 3. And August 19th, end of quarter 4. They're not even quarters, and we didn't set these dates. Our state commission tells us when quarters start and end. So we have to report the information they share quarterly with us, the members. The supervisors don't have quarterly reports, but the members do, and that gets reported up. Using Encore, so they're using their timesheets weekly. That's an activity. Complete and submit at least 4 great stories, hopefully 1 each quarter, but at the end they'll need 4. And those are reflection activities. Recruit and manage, this is our volunteer goal. 5 volunteers, and each of those volunteers ideally would do 3 or more hours to provide support to enhance your nonprofit or community. And they'll report progress on that daily. Oh, sorry, not daily, quarterly. Oh my word. We already talked about this with the member, but they may need some assistance from you. These are not all fresh new volunteers that they recruit and bring in. If that is what you'd like them to do, they certainly can use that, do that as a function. But if you already have an established core of volunteers and their role may be engaging with the current volunteer to make sure they have a 5-star experience, and they might serve as a coordinator to greet them. get them supplies and going, whatever they might need, give them regular recognition, feedback. So it can be a variety. It's just volunteers they engage. So they know they have a document that they will track them in, unless your organization already has a tracking form that could be used as well. But they do have this recruitment, and it's good for you to know. You may be aware of the best places to find new volunteers, or you could brainstorm together with your member if recruitment of brand new volunteers is a goal. And it could very likely be. AmeriCorps member evaluations, those are completed in February, and then the final is completed in August. Those dates are there. And just 2 more activities on the next page.
Before we move on, Shelley, there's a question in the chat. Is this documentation / information supervisors should have received ahead of time, or is the AmeriCorps is to share this with us? I'm reading it. I'm not sure which documentation or information you're referring to, so that might be helpful to clarify.
So like all of these due dates and these activities that AmeriCorps requires for supervisors, this is really your first introduction to what beyond what you need them to do as part of being an AmeriCorps member. These are the expectation AmeriCorps has for them. So this is probably new for you. The exact dates, especially if you're a returning member, these are things that you've probably learned to anticipate and plan for. You may not have had the exact dates. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to figure out if we were sent this documentation ahead of time, or if this is something we're going to receive.
This particular document was emailed out in advance, but not very long ago, maybe a week ago.
Okay.
And we can resend this for sure. And
okay.
Yeah, Brianna, I don't think you have any of this. I've got a note, and Angela's already responded with, so I'll get this stuff to you.
Yeah, I apologize. Thank you.
No, that's fine. And then an opening ceremony is an opportunity to bring all of the AmeriCorps members serving in Wisconsin together on a virtual platform and to say, you know, what you are doing is a pretty special thing this year. You're committing a year to do service, to, you know, change lives, improve communities, and we want to applaud your efforts. These are, in the past, have been in-person events. We may return to those, but this year they will be a virtual event, and it's a 90-minute event. Yeah, boy, we have a date now. It's November. Anyway, staff have it on the, I want to say like 10th or something, but.
Yes, it is
Friday.
November 10th, Friday, November 10th at 10 a.m.
So 10 to 11:30. If someone wants to drop that in a chat. That event, hopefully they can attend. It'll be an opportunity to be on a very large meeting, virtual meeting. The pledge is stated they're inspiring motivational speakers and usually some influential alumni who can talk about how AmeriCorps really impacted the trajectory of their careers. And the last item there is National Day of Service Project or Disaster Relief Project. And a National Day of Service, we have 2 of them. 9/11 was one of those. And so they probably missed that window of opportunity. And then MLK Day, which comes in January, mid-January, is another day that AmeriCorps takes the lead on planning events in their community. So I say that, but we are not putting the thumb on you or your member to do an event. But in general, AmeriCorps members should be involved in one of those 2, or optional days might be National Volunteer Week or Make a Difference Day, which is the last Saturday or fourth Saturday in October. Again, your member has gotten more information on this, and I'm happy to share more if you have questions. And I saw the example of a great story, and somebody already answered that maybe, huh?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to make sure the supervisors get access to that on the map.
Okay, so that was a lot of information about what AmeriCorps will expect. This is pretty much the outline for the year. There won't be too many additional expectations thrown on you beyond that. So if you remember on the cover page, you checked and said, I commit to doing these to the best of my ability. So the yellow column on the way left, you should be able to take, and I'll ask you, Megan, maybe to do that alongside opening ceremony. If you take your mouse, you can just click and put an X in that column. Are you able to do that on there?
But it's a picture that you put in here, not a table.
Okay.
Unless I can scribble. Let's see. Maybe. Oh, I was trying to use a Teams feature on the spot here.
Yeah, there you go. So you'll just put a little X in there, and in the actual document, it's very simple. You just click in the box, put an X, and that's like, I understand it. It'll look similar to that. Brianna?
I have my hand raised. It's Angela. Hi.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just wondering, while you're talking about the yellow boxes with the X's, if you could tell us who are supervising a returning community corps member, what we're supposed to do on the line with the yellow box with the CDC trainings, since they're not committing to doing those again. Do we leave that blank, or do we exit out? Okay.
Check it because it's already completed. Just check it off.
And then as a clarification, we are still committing to do National Day of Service or disaster relief, but it's up to the specific member service plan to identify something. There's no coordinated or assigned like Martin Luther King Day of Service this year.
That's right. If we were to have gathered on MLK Day, we would have probably planned an event to help take care of this requirement. But it doesn't need to be something large. If you're in a more urban community, there will probably be several Martin Luther King Day opportunities to engage in something someone else is already planning. Or you might, if you are in like an after school setting, you might, as a member, decide you want to do a little mini lesson on diversity or on who is Martin Luther King Jr. And that would complete that activity. But I could also do a service day, might be simply to walk in my neighborhood and pick up trash. And I could do that on Make a Difference Day, somewhere around that time, and that would accomplish that. And we'll talk about that disaster, AmeriCorps disaster project.
So Shelley, when it says see the monthly team calendar, is that something on the map? Or yes. I don't know what calendar. Okay.
It's an actual calendar that is interactive. It has links on it. And then we will also try to maintain the paper calendar that we've used in the past. But the actual calendar, electronic calendar, would be the most up to date. So in completing this so far, looking at reading those a little deeper than what I just did, and maybe having a discussion what your member understands this to be, because we did talk about these more in depth with the member. All you need to do is put the X in front of each of those all the way down, saying, yes, I agree, we're going to accomplish this during this coming term. Okay, let's look at the next page. So this is a screenshot of the final page, which is where you put your custom activities. We have so many different sites doing different things. What you will do is very unique. So the first column is trying to identify what is the community or public health focus area this activity fits under. So you may have activities in 5 different focus areas. You may have 5 activities all in one focus area. Both are proper and okay. It just depends on the service for your member. So the focus areas, we've identified about 12 of them, and then we've added an other category. If you choose other, you write in then what that category is. Please just don't leave it blank as other. So adequate and appropriate food, safe food and nutrition. That's one focus area. Alcohol and other drug use, mental health, reproductive and sexual health, and so on. So you can see those categories. So the first thing is you think about, well, what is my member going to do? And try to find a category, otherwise use other. The next column is just like we did with our AmeriCorps activities. What is the timeline or due date that we anticipate this member will finish this activity? Try as best as you can to have a specific day rather than ongoing, because ongoing is kind of like the bottom of our to-do list items. We don't feel as motivated when it doesn't have a due date. So set targets. Break the task into pieces and put target due dates. That would be my recommendation. Identify the team who works with a member on this project, who they go to if they need direction. And then what are the planned accomplishments? How will they know if they're successful? That's what you're going to identify. And that's as far as you will go with this in September. The last is at the end of the year. You'll tell me what were my actual outcomes. This is what I thought I would do, but maybe I had different results. So you will have to copy and paste these for every time you have a different focus area. So if you're choosing the healthy growth and development focus area, and all of your members' service falls under that, that could be 1, 2, 3 pages, depending on how many unique activities they have. Some programs, the description, it just has like maybe 3 activities, and it seems very small, but those activities encompass a lot. As you work through this, and most likely you've already been thinking about what your member will be doing, and you could be drafting something in a different format. And so it's transferring, and we apologize to ask you to do this, but we need everyone to have the same document in the member's file. So you could transfer what you've already been drafting. And I'm not telling you you can't use that. You might prefer your own format, but for our purposes, we'll ask you to at least review and update this document quarterly. And in case you didn't receive this, it's coming. Boy, that's going to be a whopper of a follow-up email, Megan. The last page then, there's one more, is just a checklist, just to make sure that you didn't overlook anything. And I think that's the next slide, Megan. So I'm not going to read through it, but it is worth your time. Did you check the yellow boxes in the first column? Oh, yeah, no, I didn't. So I think they're all in there for you. Worthwhile to check it each quarter. If you have significant changes, you can forward it. You don't have to wait till the quarter deadline if you make a significant change. You might write it and never need to make any changes. It'd probably be a little rare, but that's possible. And then you would just submit it again at the end. Do you have enough information to feel comfortable about completing it for the due date of end of this month? Maybe I'll have to see once I start it. I don't know. Thank you. There's a few thumbs up. All right. Reach out to us with questions. I talked to you about our ability to be a little flexible on that deadline. I mean, we want the member to have a plan sooner than later, but if you need a week or so, we can probably work around that.
And I'm going to piggyback off of what Shelly's been saying. When Shelly and I review these, if it is not fully completed or it's not completed appropriately, we do send it back to you for corrections. So please make sure that you really are reviewing these items on this checklist and making sure that you're completing it as it needs to be completed. It just saves all of us a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, every column should have something in it. Please don't leave those blank. Boy, something popped in my head when Allison was mentioning, but oh, so I just wanted one supervisor. So Angela, I'm going to ask you to share about this because last year, was this your first year doing the member service plan?
That's right.
Yes. And so how, I mean, we don't want this to be an activity that is not helpful. Our goal was in designing this to make it helpful. We thought you need to know all of our requirements. We're going to put them in here for you. We need to know what the members expected to do from you. And so we feel like it's accomplishing that. Give us your take on it.
Sure. Thanks, Shelley. So first of all, my background, I supervise volunteers at the museum in just the visitor services position here. So I had some level of supervisory experience, but I had never supervised independent progress towards stated goals like the AmeriCorps experience sets up our members to be able to do. So I hadn't worked with someone to develop anything like the member service plan before. It was really helpful to have that structure and to have that shared document. And I think, we definitely started the year overly ambitious. And so I along with my amazing returning member, Tim, worked on those quarterly reviews and definitely always submitted those revisions. So I appreciated the flexibility. So it provides really important structure at the beginning, but then it remains pretty flexible throughout the year. It was great on a quarterly basis to be forced to revisit and review and track progress. So I appreciated all of those quarterly deadlines that are required. And just generally keeping that member service plan on our server so that everyone on staff at our museum was regularly encouraged as a standing staff meeting agenda item to remember that member service plan is available for them to look at, to really understand where our AmeriCorps member is intending to focus their time and attention. And then it was really fun at the very end to document all of those outcomes. So I actually really enjoyed it. It initially felt a little overwhelming. It felt like, oh, is this going to be one more set of papers and one more burden and one more deadline to worry about making? But in the end, I'm really sold on the member service plan. So really happy to evangelize.
Thank you for the kind words and the encouragement. So it may feel a little daunting to get it accomplished, but the work will be worth it. And hopefully you'll have a similar reaction. I am blown away when I read the final member service plans and all that members accomplish. Those who really use it as a documentation tool and not just, I got to do it, so I'll just be really brief. It's amazing. And it just has to feel good as a member and as a supervisor to think together, look at what we did. So.
Can you guys hear me? Can I jump in quick?
Yes, Miranda.
Yeah, so I think like when you're first doing the member evaluation or the service plan, it can be kind of overwhelming to have like all of these documentations and stuff you're filling out. But I've also found it like really helpful, like when you're in school and writing like things that you've done, or like on your resume, cover letters, you have like the exact things like you've done. So it's really nice to be able to like look back and
Oh, you are? Oh, I thought
like
they're
have
gonna
all
send
those
you back.
points
I'll
already
come and
written
get
out.
you. Hang on a second. Bye-bye.
So yeah, I found it like helpful even after your term, like just being able to like look back at it and like either submit like some of those points for like in college, or like if you're making your resume and stuff, it's already written out for you and it's easy to just copy and paste it and like look back on the document.
A beautiful testimonial. Thank you for sharing that, Miranda. Miranda's a third term member this year, so she knows from where she speaks. That wraps up member service plan.
Any final questions before we move on? Great. Will be time for questions at the end. So questions pop in to your head. We'll have time at the end for final questions. Okay, shifting gears now to the member handbook and policies. This is a large document that is applicable for members, host sites, supervisors. It is really your guidebook to the rules, regulations, service, benefits, policies, all of that within one document. Like I said, it's large. There's a nice table of contents, so you can search and navigate to pages from there. Control F can also be your friend in this document if you're looking for something specific or a key word. So this is a document. It's on the map. Members should have received it. I think Shelley, you sent out an email
yesterday
to everybody.
Twice. Yes.
Okay. So this is a document. Keep somewhere safe. If you even want to print it out, go right ahead. But important document. So what we're going to do is, because we find that not everybody is going to read it cover to cover. If you want to, you're more than welcome to. We encourage that. But we're going to go through some key points that applies to a lot of our members. But just remember, this is a good place to look for information. If you have any questions about expectations, rules, deadlines, due dates, all of that. So without further ado, if you have it in front of you, you can follow along. But if not, just remember at some point to take a look at that document. But on page 5, so we're skipping down through the table of contents and all of that, we talk about the minimum required service hours for members. So depending on the term, full-time, three-quarter time, or half-time, there is a total number of hours that the members have to serve, 1,700, 1,200, 900. That is a requirement. If members do not receive those total hours, they do not receive their education award. Extremely important that members stay on task to achieve those total hours. Supervisors, your responsibility is to provide them with enough service and enough work to be able to achieve those total hours. Us as program staff do keep an eye on hours. We can view that in Encore. And so if you are falling behind in hours, we will be reaching out to make sure that you have a plan in place, because we don't want anyone to exit without being able to receive their education award. We also, the column in here kind of shows the average number of hours per week needed. This is if you, for full-time, for example, 34 hours a week. If every week you served 34 hours, you would achieve that 1,700 hours. But we recommend serving, 35 to 40 hours per week, because then that accounts for vacation time or time off. And then you can see for three-quarter time and half time about which that average hours per week would be needed. But each host site and member is going to be different. So we know that some members are going to be serving more time, maybe during the school year, and less time in the summer. Other programs might be the opposite. Lighter weeks during the the school year and maybe heavier during program or camp sessions in the summer. So if we reach out, don't panic. We're just trying to check in and make sure that you have a solid plan in place. And members, this afternoon, we're going to talk about a tool that you can help plan your hours for time off. And then the last column, I just pulled together from the handbook, minimum hours per week. This is just sort of an estimate, but we do expect you to serve that at least that minimum number of hours each week to maintain your status. Question in the chat from Lynn, a very important question about vacation weeks. I apologize to the other staff if we're covering this later, but I can cover it now about vacation time. So AmeriCorps, there is no, paid time off or vacation time built into the program. That is something that you'll work out with, you as the member and the supervisor, how you're going to go about time off. But like I said, if you are serving, 35 to 40 hours per week as a full-time member, you should have about 3 weeks or 15 days or so of vacation where you can take time off for holidays and still achieve that full 1,700 hours. Half time and 3/4 time are a little bit different. So talk to your supervisor about a plan and how you would request time off, or maybe that's time you just fit into your schedule and that's adjusted for any days that you need off.
And that 15 days is a general rule of thumb for full-time members, but really it comes with a caveat that members can talk to you about getting those dates approved to take off if they can afford that time off. If they're not maintaining, a minimum number of like 34 hours a week to stay on track. If they're starting to fall further and further behind each week and then ask for a week off, as a supervisor, I'd be really reluctant because the hole is getting just deeper and deeper. So members need to try to, when possible, bank some hours, get closer to 35 to 40 hours every week, and you'll have a little bit of cushion there. So when you need time off, it's appropriate to ask for it.
Stacy?
Hi. So when I take 1,700 hours required, divide it by 50 weeks, which I believe is the amount of weeks they're serving, I get 34. So that tells me there's no built-in time for vacation time or holiday, unless they work more hours every week.
40, yeah.
Well, even 35, that would only give you what, an extra 1 week. So I don't think we're being super clear on what it takes to get that 1,700 hours and have some time off.
I'm glad you realized that, and please communicate very clearly with your member. 34 will, if you can do 34 every single week, regardless if there's a holiday, you somehow get 34 in, and your site is closed, you will hit the target. But you probably need to plan more so that you have the availability to take time off.
And Stacy, I can retract my 35 to 40. So I believe that 15 days off refers to if they're working 40 hours per week, but I'd have to do the calculation again.
Okay, thank you. I did a grid with my member last year, who is a Recovery Corps full-time. And basically it was 1 extra hour per week equaled 1 week of sick time, holiday time, vacation time, whatever. So my advice to her was, if you want 5-week equivalent of vacation and sick time and holiday time, plan to work 39 hours a week for all of the other weeks.
Yeah, that works. There is no overtime in AmeriCorps.
But members are welcome to serve more than 40 hours. So if they have a bigger vacation planned or they have extra time off that you've approved, they can serve more than 40 hours in a week to help make up for that time.
And Melody is correct, 51. We do have 51 weeks. 1 week might be a little shy of a full week, but
Okay, any other questions on minimum required service hours? Okay, last point on this page, jumping down to page 7. Important to know that healthcare is a benefit for full-time and 3/4 time members. Members who elected this during enrollment have already been enrolled, but at any point in time, members can request to pick up healthcare coverage. They just need to reach out to us and let us know. And that goes the other way around. If members, we alerted you, if you no longer need your health insurance, please let us know because we are paying a significant amount per month. So just let us know if you no longer need it and we will remove your benefits. And healthcare is only for the member. It does not cover dependents or spouses, unfortunately.
and yeah. For those listening to the recording, healthcare is not dependent on household income.
And it is a pretty nice benefit, a low deductible plan. So I would say it's fairly affordable, depending on the services that you need. Okay, moving on. I see I forgot to put the page numbers in here, but time off. Oh, look, we already went over all of this. Full-time members are allowed to request up to 15 days off, but again, it really depends on how many hours per week they're serving on average and how many hours they've accumulated. So we will provide members with a nice little tracker that they can today sort of plan out any time off that they might need or vacation days depending on their schedule. Let's see. Important to know for members is that if you are going to be taking more than 2 weeks off of service, you need to reach out to Marshfield Clinic staff because we may need to temporarily suspend you and it could potentially affect your living stipend if we don't have any service hours logged in that pay period. So just reach out to us and we will facilitate and help work out a situation to allow that longer vacation, of course, if approved by your supervisor. And then as previously stated, half-time members don't have a designated number of vacation days. They just have to negotiate with their site on any time off. Some other benefits that we lay out and talk about in the handbook are how to access the food share benefit, energy assistant, other state benefits AmeriCorps members might be eligible for. And so we encourage all members to check out those resources and supervisors as well, encouraging your members if they come to you with any issues or concerns about not being able to pay for groceries or housing, things like that. We know the living stipend is a little bit lower. So we want to do our best to support our members and ensure they have all of the necessary needs. And these additional benefits that they might be eligible for are really helpful. So information is found. I'll have to, before I send the slides out, I'll put the page numbers in here on this slide.
The verification letters are on that too, that we provide those for if you're applying for.
Oh, thank you for pointing that out, Shelley.
Yep.
Yes. So you might need a verification letter. Just reach out to your program staff person and we have a template that we will fill out to you that you can provide as documentation that the living stipend doesn't count as income.
Or food share.
Or food
There
share.
is a question in the chat. If a member is working with a food pantry, would they be able to use that same pantry to supply their needs?
I think that's dependent on your food pantry policy. I don't see why not. And if it's available to the community, it's available to the AmeriCorps member. Stacy, let's see. Did you say that the living stipend does not qualify as income for food share? Yes. Because it's a living stipend, it's not a wage. So that's what our verification letter proves, so that when members are applying, it all gets approved. Any other questions on benefits? There are more in the handbook. We are trying to skim through the most important or commonly asked about benefits.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. This is mandatory training events, and we kind of covered them on our member service plan. So Host Site Supervisor Training today is your supervisors, your mandatory event. For members, orientation this full week, fall meetup on October 13th, our monthly team webinars, and if they do have to miss that live training, they should contact us and let us know, and there is a recording available. And then the foundational training for public health, that's using the CDC website, just an approximate 20 hours by the end of the term. So those are mandatory. To attend or participate in those, there should be no financial outlay for the member. So the program should be able to pick up any costs that may be incurred. Optional member trainings, though, super highly encouraged, because some of these are the most fun events that we don't want the members to miss out on, such as midterm training, potentially at the Kalahari Resort, the end of February, beginning of March. So we pay for lodging, we reimburse their transportation, we provide them with meals. Anything beyond that would come out of pocket for the member, but the basic needs to be able to attend will all be covered. 140-hour community health worker training program. Does that come up again?
Yep, that'll be after the handbook. I'll talk about that.
So that is optional, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And trauma-informed care, that is training that our state commission is talking about offering, and they will let us know what those dates are. I don't believe that there is any sort of a certificate or certification that will be at the conclusion of that, but it would still be something that they might want to document completion of and who the speaker was.
All right, so we did already cover employment with host site while serving. Members were not on when we did that. So this is discouraged by AmeriCorps. It does require a written request and approval from our state service commission, Serve Wisconsin. So if that is something that were to ever come up, let us know in advance, because we would need to get that approval before that could occur. Member identification and branding, we also went over this with both members and supervisors. Key takeaway here is that magnetic name tag is required. Members, when you are serving, you need to be wearing your magnetic name tag. If you happen to lose it, let us know immediately. We can replace it. Host site sign, members, we will be providing you with a new host site sign if yours came damaged, but we would like that hung in the host site's main entrance or lobby. And then other branding opportunities that are located in the handbook. The signature block example for emails is in our handbook, and there is a voicemail message template or message in the handbook. So members, please utilize those, and supervisors, if you could just check those over. We would just obviously want to make sure everything is as it should be and it meets AmeriCorps standards and also the host site standards of professionalism.
Okay, page 13 and 14 talks about member noncompliance and action plan. There is a nice chart in there about the different level of violations and the actions needed. So members and supervisors need to follow this table. And again, as supervisors, we mentioned documentation is important. Members know that your host site cannot simply fire you. They need to reach out to our staff, and we sort of need to come up with an action plan and performance improvement plan. So there is those steps that need to take place before a member would be simply exited from their host site. Of course, there might be an unusual case, but we'll take everything on a case-by-case basis. But that's why it's important to reach out to us with any issues from either the member or the supervisor.
So just a reminder that when you get an email notification that your member has submitted a timesheet, it's pretty simple. As a former supervisor, I remember it was pretty simple just to open it up, click approved, and move on without even taking more than a cursory glance at it. But I want you to know that when you approve it, you are actually attesting that the service was, number one, within scope of the AmeriCorps program, so has something related to health, that no prohibited or unallowable activity occurred, and you should have a list of those posted at your host site, the prohibitive and unallowed activities that was mailed to your member in their virtual training package. And you will also cover those in the On3 Learn training. And also approving a timesheet says that it's true and accurate. And we probably need to add that if there was teleservice, you reviewed any documentation. So thank you for taking this as a serious responsibility and taking time to actually read and make sure that it does fit those 3 criteria. That's page 15 and page 16 in your handbook. Fundraising, covered on page 18, is not a focus of our program. And although fundraising will include activities such as researching for a grant proposal, or actually reviewing or writing a grant proposal, or it could be holding a bake sale, it could be doing a raffle, or organizing a bigger event like a 5K. And we know that that's very important work at nonprofits. However, remember the funding source, and we need to be just really careful that we are not using federal dollars to be able to support things that AmeriCorps was not intended for. So we talked about it being unique service that you just don't have capacity to do without having this member present. And so things like fundraising that will end up in just the general operations fund of an organization, that's a serious prohibited activity. So fundraising for a special specific project. So like if you were fundraising to be able to offer an in-person volunteer recognition event, and the volunteers wouldn't have to pay for the meal, you were going to cover that, that would be an allowable expense because all of our members are working with volunteers. So the guidance is, if your member is going to do fundraising, whether it's actual like boots on the ground fundraising, or if it's more like grant writing. Grant writing is a great skill for them to learn about, but we just need to know, number one, is it federal? Because any kind of grant writing related to federal grants is not allowed, and where will those funds go? And if it becomes The burden will fall on you if it becomes an auditing issue and they want to see, well, how do we know that those funds really went there? Would you be able to document that? So the 3 bullet points here then, if you're saying, I want my member to do this, is it allowable? Number 1, total hours cannot exceed 10% of their total time. So a full-time member can do no more than 510 hours, 3/4 is 360 hours of fundraising, and a half-time member can do no, I'm sorry, those are for something different. 10%, so 170 hours for 1,700, right? 90 hours for a half-time member and 120 for a 3/4. I'm sorry. So the funds go in support of the service activities that the member is actually working on. It's part of the grant, and none of the money goes to general operating. So a couple sites have already reached out to me because they weren't really aware of this information about fundraising, and we were able to talk through things. So if you want to get just, the stamp of approval, we'd really, really encourage you not to dip into fundraising without just double checking. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that a second page here. Examples, these are allowable. Seeking donations for books for a program in which volunteers tutor children to read. Writing a grant proposal to a foundation, something local, not federal, to secure resources to support the training of volunteers. Securing supplies and equipment from the company to enable volunteers to build homes for low-income individuals. Securing financial resources from the community to assist a faith-based or community-based organization in launching or expanding a program providing health education. And seeking donations from AmeriCorps alums for a specific service project that the member's performing.
All right, any questions on fundraising before we keep shuffling through the handbook? Okay, next on page 18, 19, page 18 and 19, it looks like, are all the prohibitive activities. Because all members and supervisors are going to be taking the prohibitive activities course, I'm not going to spend time reading this slide, but know that these are the categories of prohibitive activities. So political activity and advocacy, religious activity, such as engaging in religious instruction, that is prohibited. On the next page here, other categories, benefiting for-profit, that was a tongue twister, for-profit entities. So the members can't support a business that is for profit or be doing service towards. Voter registration, any thing related to abortion services, that is a prohibitive activity. And some additional activities are raising funds for his or her living allowance. Again, like we mentioned in fundraising, raising funds for general operating expenses for the nonprofit, writing grant applications for AmeriCorps or other federal grants. And so you'll all learn the specific details about prohibitive activities in that On3Learn course.
There is a question in the chat, Megan, related to all of this.
I could see. Let me go back to that slide. So question, they believe there are certain types of advocacy are permitted, correct? Will there be training or handouts differentiating allowed versus unallowed? That On3Learn course will go in depth, but here's the list of what we mean by political activity and what's not allowed. So influencing legislation, organizing or engaging in protests, promoting or deterring union gatherings, impairing existing contracts for services, engaging in partisan political activities, or participating in endorsing in events that are likely to include advocacy for or against political parties. So AmeriCorps is bipartisan. And we rely on funding from all parties. So we remain bipartisan, and our members have to make sure that their service activities are well as well. Does that sort of answer your questions, Stacy? There will be more information in that course.
And Stacy, I think in general, we can say members can educate, but they can't make that ask about, so on the upcoming bill, we would like you to vote such and such a way, but you can tell them what the member can talk about what they're doing in the community and educate them about the issues that they are working around. But they just can't try to influence any action. And again, all of this is prohibited while they're serving and charging time to the grant. If they want to engage in these activities when they're not serving, they're not going to put it on a timesheet, they can. We just ask that they don't wear any sort of branding that would affiliate them with AmeriCorps, just to get, that might be, sending the wrong message.
Good
sort of.
Shelley. Okay, we're going to move on because we have a little bit to cover yet in this last 10 minutes.
Yes, so non-duplication and non-displacement, this is found on page 20 of the handbook. Basically, non-duplication, we don't want duplication of efforts, right? So your AmeriCorps members project is really something that is unique, something that is not being worked on, right? Non-displacement, this just means that your AmeriCorps member is not displacing an employee or a position. So you can't maybe have a staff member and then say, well, we're going to eliminate the staff member because we're going to put an AmeriCorps member in this position instead. So that is not allowed. Also, what is not allowed is partial displacement. So we don't want a reduction of an existing employee's hours or benefits because the AmeriCorps member is now taking on some of those responsibilities. So AmeriCorps members should not be performing any services or duties that are part of the assigned duties of an employee. Again, it goes back to the fact that your AmeriCorps member is there to really focus on a particular project or issue that you would not have capacity to do otherwise. So their service is unique to what your employees are doing at the organization. Oh, and this is mine too, isn't it? Okay, other policies that you're going to find in the handbook. We went over some of these already, but if there are any sort of performance issues, Megan talked about, we have that disciplinary guidelines for improper conduct. You will find that in the handbook. Travel reimbursement, members were made aware of this. Earlier this week, we utilized Concur, so members are able to submit requests for travel reimbursement, like if they are driving to and from our midterm event, for example. There is more information on that on the map. Changing terms. So this is something I don't think that we covered with host site supervisors, but we have covered with members. So if you, for example, have a member who is serving in a full-time capacity and they decide that it is too much, they're not going to be able to meet their 1,700 hour commitment, and they would like to drop down to, say, a 3/4 time service slot or a half-time service slot, as long as it is okay with you, it's okay with us, and we can make that change, but it needs to be done within 90 days of the member's start date. So it does need to be made relatively early on in the service term. So members, if you feel that this may apply to you, make sure you have that conversation with your host site supervisor as soon as possible, because we do need to make that change within 90 days. Life Matters. This is our employee assistance program. We talked quite a bit about it with members earlier this week. There are a lot of incredible resources on the Life Matters site. Supervisors, if you notice that your member maybe needs, they're struggling, maybe they need some assistance, mental health, that sort of thing, please direct them to the Life Matters site. There is more information about that on the map as well. But like I said, a lot of really great resources, very helpful things, and a wide variety of topics that's covered on the Life Matters site. And we are covered under workers' compensation. The incident does need to be reported within 24 hours. So members, if you get injured while you are serving, let me, Shelly, Megan, Sophie, let one of us know within 24 hours. Obviously, let your host site supervisor know as well, because we do need to make that claim very quickly.
Okay, and that wraps up policies and the handbook in general. Next, briefly, I'm going to talk about the Community Health Worker Training Scholarship. Members, just because we're short on time now, I will put this slide at the end of the day to go into it in more detail. But supervisors, you should be aware that our Community Corps program offers a Community Health Worker Training Scholarship. So this is above and beyond what's provided to them during orientation week. They're getting sort of a taste of community health worker training, but Milwaukee Area Health Education Center, Milwaukee AHEC, they put on a full community health worker training. That is a 15-week virtual training. There's a class once a week, March through July 2024, roughly, that the members can participate in if you approve of them participating. Not all members will be interested, but it is an opportunity that we're going to make available. So we encourage you to support your member if that's a professional goal that they have. They receive a certificate of training after the course. Looks great on a resume. Awesome opportunity. The community health worker field is really booming right now. Lots of positions available for them to stay in the public health field. It's a $2,500 value. So that fee is covered by our program. So no cost to the member. Just need the support of the supervisor and the host site to take advantage of that opportunity. Limited spots are available. So hopefully in the next week or two, I'll send an email out to members, get sort of interest gathered on how many folks we have interested, and start a application process to determine depending on how many slots we have. So more information to come on how to register and get signed up for this opportunity, but just giving you a heads up now that in the spring, members will have a chance to participate if this is something that they're interested in. So members, happy to answer more questions later this afternoon. I just know we have one more slide to cover, so I'm going to pass it over to Shelly.
Another optional activity members can choose to participate in while they're serving this year is the Wisconsin AmeriCorps Disaster Team. And if the member has interest in being trained and then doing probably a practice event, or if there is a real disaster event somewhere within the state of Wisconsin, and if our individuals could support that, they may be deployed for up to a week. And again, this is all with supervisor permission and member interest. So I usually participate as staff. I have done that since this, over the last 6 years, since this has been something that Serve Wisconsin, our state commission, actually coordinates. And it goes from November, well, last year it did, and I think they'll follow a similar timeline, from November until May. And it requires the member to enroll and complete 2 incident command classes on the FEMA website, and then to participate in some of the virtual training. So they did a muck and gut and debris removal overview, volunteer reception center training, emergency sheltering training, and donation management training. And then we were scheduled to do a drill exercise at Fort McCoy in May, and it ended up having to get canceled, unfortunately, and was not able to be rescheduled. So in the past, the AmeriCorps members who went through the training and participated in some of the virtual training as well, they had 3 different opportunities to respond, and two of them were partnering with Team Rubicon, who is amazing to work with. So these are professionals. These are usually veterans who do this on their vacation time. They organize and plan disaster response. It's usually like long-term cleanup responses. So projects that our AmeriCorps program have worked on in the past was some flooding up in the Bad River area, Draco tree removal. There was like straight line winds up in Winter, Wisconsin, and cleaning those, cleaning up snowmobile trails, because that is the lifeblood of that area, is the tourism for snowmobiling during the winter. And we also did something at the Boy Scout camp. I can't remember specifically what that response was. So again, if the member is interested, they'll come to you for approval, and then the participation is minimal unless there is an actual event, and then it's up to you. We ask that you allow them at least 10 hours, but you can allow them more.
There's a question in the chat on whether host site supervisors can attend the trainings.
I think they can, and that would be really fun to have you as part of this, but I'll confirm that.
Any other questions about the disaster response team?
How many hours? So minimally it would take 10 hours. And it may take a little bit more if there's an actual exercise, and hopefully there will be, because it was kind of a letdown to get all excited and trained and then not to be able to use any of the skills. So.
And then in the member service plan, was it a choice to do the disaster team or a service day type project?
It is written that way. It could be do both. I mean, again, supervisor is approving all activity that the member engages in.
Questions? All right, I know we are just right on time. I do want to get out on time. So we'll stay for questions at the end, but for those that have to get going, just wanted to quickly get in a thank you so much for your attention, your questions, and just your support with our AmeriCorps program. We can't do it without our host sites, our host site supervisors, and of course our members. So hopefully you enjoyed the training. Please reach out to us. There's our shared email. Otherwise, reach out to any of our staff. Questions, concerns, we are here to help. And I will send out a follow-up email, hopefully in the next day, with a lot of the information that you all requested. So stay tuned for that email and have a great service year.
Thank you, and bye everyone.
And if we didn't